So about last night. No, I'm not talking about the Kyrie drama right now. We're going to talk about the snubs, and we're going to talk about the selections for the Western and the Eastern Conference reserves, and just kind of break this down, because of course every year, same old song. Is this really worse than any other year? There's a lot of complaining going on. Everybody's a snub. There's just going to be a guy now every year that's putting up ridiculous numbers that doesn't make the NBA All-Star game. But in reality, numbers are inflated. And a guy like Anthony Edwards, for example, putting up 25 points per game, not making the game. Some guys are putting up great numbers, didn't make the game. Everybody's putting up great numbers. And if they're not putting up amazing jaw-dropping numbers, their value is present in another way. And I think that's the case with some of the guys on here like Drew Holiday, for example, or Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, the first thing I'm going to say, before we really get into it, about Jaren Jackson Jr., who I think probably has the majority of complaints as far as player that just didn't deserve to be in the game, per my Twitter following, I guess, and maybe just people in general, like the imposter among us, just out of everybody, because I think people generally know that Drew Holiday is a very valuable player and an all-star caliber player, and especially after we're hearing about Jaren Jackson's quote-unquote fake stats, inflated stats at home on his steals and blocks. People definitely don't like that, and that's like the biggest headline around Jaren Jackson in the last few weeks. Also a guy who missed a bunch of time early in the year, so a little bit hypocritical to have him over guys, I'm just going to say it, Kawhi Leonard and Anthony Davis didn't make the All-Star game for the same exact reason. Like, it's not like they're not good enough to be in this game. I don't know how Paul George, first of all, made the All-Star game over those guys. And another thing, I can't find any indication of who the wild card spots went to, who was actually selected in the reserve backcourt and frontcourt, and then who the last two spots in each conference were, because that's how the voting went. So we just had to have 3 frontcourt players. Still no excuse for not having one of Anthony Davis or Kawhi in there over Jaren Jackson, like I said, a guy who has missed games. Not to understate his impact or anything on the game, because let me just play devil's advocate for a second for all the people calling him a fake all-star, imposter, doesn't deserve to be there. Listen, Jaren Jackson Jr., he's probably the favorite right now for Defensive Player of the Year, and I know that fans don't really care about defense that much, but he is a key reason why the Grizzlies are just a great basketball team in general, regardless of what's happening recently with them, how they have built the record up to be a 2 seed in the West. You need a defense to be an elite team, and he is the best defensive player maybe in the league right now, so that obviously has to count for something, your Defensive Player of the Year. If you're that level of defensive player, not justifying the pick, just giving a little bit of insight, because he does average 16 points per game. A lot of people might be raising their eyebrows at that. Hey, Draymond Green made all-star teams. If we're counting guys that aren't necessarily 25-point scorers that just impact winning like that, I don't see why Jaren Jackson Jr. should be disqualified from making an all-star team, but it's just about who he makes it over. He hasn't even played all of the games, so why would he make it over AD and Kawhi? Aaron Gordon, I'm not going to call him a snub. No one is out here protesting the NBA because Aaron Gordon didn't make the All-Star game, but arguably as deserving as Jaren Jackson Jr., probably more deserving. I mean, he's played more games, and he's been the second best player throughout the year on the Nuggets, so just saying. Now, Paul George is the other gripe I have with the Western Conference. Likely selected as a wild card. Does anybody in the comments know if I can find a list of these players where we designate each player where they were selected, if as a front court or a back court, a wild card, whatever? Because I honestly have no clue what Paul George's position is, if it's a back court or a front court. The guy plays in the back court, but I think he was on the front court in the balloting. The fact that he's in the game and not Anthony Edwards or De'Aaron Fox, absolutely ridiculous to me. Paul George has missed time this year. Paul George is the number 2. So if it's me, if you saw my video, I'm putting in Fox and I'm putting in goddamn Kawhi Leonard for Jaren Jackson. Now moving on to the Eastern Conference. This one people also had a large issue with. Certain guys getting snubbed. How about James Harden? For one, I am not the guy that's going to sit here and act like James Harden is the greatest scorer, top 5 player of our generation or whatever that a lot of people pretend that he is. That's not me, but I'm not going to sit here and act like he doesn't deserve to be on this damn team the way he's playing this year, coming off of an incredibly forgettable playoff run last season and absolutely redeeming himself so far. He has his team playing amazing basketball, in large part due to him. Yeah, having Joel on your team helps, but he is allowing Joel to flourish because of his presence and being a point guard type, floor general type player on the offensive end. Pretty inexcusable for me for him not to be here. I did heavily advocate for Drew Holiday to be on this team with James Harden. I'm not going to shit on the Drew Holiday pick or the Halliburton pick. Both deserved, DeMar DeRozan, if you know what my team is, I'm sitting here and saying DeMar DeRozan doesn't deserve to be an all-star this year. I have absolutely no clue how he makes it over James Harden, even Jalen Brunson, who I had as a snub. Didn't think he was going to make the game, but I had the rest of these guys. I would have had James Harden in there over DeMar DeRozan. Bam Adebayo over Jimmy Butler. I had a feeling they would do this because he's played more games. And Bam Adebayo, often undervalued player, I guess, but I'm not mad at that. The Heat did deserve one All-Star. Now, Pascal Siakam didn't make the All-Star game either. I wasn't that upset about this. I know some people were. I understand it, but when your team is this disappointing, do you really deserve an all-star? Pascal Siakam, he started off amazing, and he was looking like a lock for this game. But the way this team has looked, the way he has looked last couple weeks, last month, I just couldn't do it. And the NBA coaches agreed with me, clearly. So, but definitely some fuck-ups here. Definitely some highly questionable decisions. Paul George, Jaren Jackson is kind of gross, especially Paul George. I don't know. I just can't. I really can't get on board with that. Some guys really deserve this that didn't get it. And DeMar DeRozan. Yeah. So that's going to do it. Let me know what you guys think. Who got snubbed? Who made it that shouldn't have? Give me your all-star teams. If it was you, if it was a perfect world. And that's going to do it. Bucketology. Peace.